Hey guys, what's up? Why is insulin resistance slowly destroying our health? And how do we fix it? And most importantly, why should we even care? So most people think that insulin is something only diabetics need to care about. But here's actually the shocking truth. Insulin resistance impacts every single one of us. It determines whether you gain or lose weight, whether you feel energized or exhausted, how quickly you age. It even affects how you or if you develop chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver. It affects your skin. It makes you age more. So if you don't understand insulin, you're missing out on one of the most important pieces of this health puzzle, which includes GLP-1. And in this video, I'm going to break down to you in really simple terms. I'm going to break down what is insulin, how does insulin resistance develop, why is it's at the root of many health problems, especially our obesity crisis and our appetite and satiety signaling, and how screwed up that is, and how it affects metabolic dysfunction, and what you can do right now to improve your insulin sensitivity, which will lead to better outcomes with the GLP-1, with weight loss, with body composition, with your entire health span starting today. I'm also going to share parts of my journey, how understanding insulin has helped me to lose more than 50 pounds and keep it off for more than 2.5 years at this point, and how I feel better today at 54 years old than I have ever felt in my entire life. And that includes, my prime in my 20s. So stick with me until the end, because I'm going to give you practical, real-time, simple steps that you can take to reset your insulin, to create more insulin sensitivity that will help you to maximize your GLP-1, your nutrition, your fitness, all the things that you're implementing to get the scale to go down, to reset your body composition, to lose the weight, to feel better in your body. And I want to hear from you. Show me, tell me in the comments, have you ever even thought of insulin before? Have you heard of it? Do you know anything about it before today? So let's start with the basics of insulin and why the heck you should even care about it, because I'm going to show you why you should care about it, and you're gonna go, wow, that gives me more control over what I can do and how I can lose weight more easily and more effectively. So let's start with the basics. So insulin is a hormone. It's produced by the pancreas, and its job is simple. When you eat, food gets broken down. It gets broken down into glucose, sugar in your blood. And insulin acts like the key. So what it does is it unlocks your cells, letting the glucose into the cells. It moves it from your blood into your muscles, your liver, your fat cells, where it can either be used for energy or it's going to be stored for later. So it sounds pretty simple, right? But here's the catch. Too much glucose, too much sugar in the blood is toxic. It causes something called glycation, which damages your blood vessels, enzymes, and even your hormones. This is why uncontrolled blood sugar leads to complications like vision problems, kidney disease, fatty liver, and accelerated aging. So insulin is critical. It's what keeps the blood sugar in check. But here's where things go screwy. If insulin is constantly elevated, And we live in an environment where the insulin is and I'm going to explain why. It's constantly elevated and it never drops down for any significant periods of time. Your cells eventually will stop responding to the insulin. So that is where we come to insulin resistance. And it's happening in the background. It's silent. You don't necessarily feel it. And millions of people are being affected by this and they don't even know it. Like, I never knew this. Tell me if you heard of this or even knew of this, but until I started doing a deep dive a few years ago into why is this happening? How is a GLP actually helping? Why is it helping when nothing else could move the needle? I wanted to understand this more. I've done so much research. I've read so many articles, studies. I've listened to doctors, from cardiologists to endocrinologists to obesity specialists, trying to figure out what is at the actual root of our problem and how do we fix it, and how do GLP-1s help us fix it, and what else can we do to help ourselves. So, to be honest, when I was younger, I didn't think about insulin. I probably didn't think about insulin before a couple of years ago at all. I thought weight was simple. Calories in, calories out, right? But I do remember in the afternoon, I would have those crashes, right? 3 o'clock would come and I'd be like zonked. Almost to the point I wanted to take a nap. I'm like, I can't even function at work. Like, I need to rest or something, or I need a snack, or I need something to boost my energy up. I'd grab something to eat. I feel like I grab M&Ms. I was guilty of that, especially when I was in an office and there was candy around or cake or whatever, I would be grabbing whatever was available. I would even like coffee. I'd have coffee in the afternoon to have caffeine just to kind of make it through the rest of the day. That was insulin at work. I was spiking my blood sugar and then it would crash and then I'd crave more. Over time, I'm basically training my body to become insulin resistant. And again, nobody's told us this. We don't know it. And it's not necessarily detected in blood tests, but it can be, and I'm going to get to that. So if you have ever felt that mid-afternoon crash, the constant hunger after meals, drop a yes in the comments. Let me know if that has happened or if it sounds like you. So here is a step-by-step on exactly how insulin resistance starts to develop. So number one, your cells stop responding to insulin signal. Sugar stays up in your bloodstream instead of moving into the cells. Your pancreas has to work even harder to crank out more insulin. It's got to just pump more and more and more of it out. Eventually, over time, the pancreas just can't keep up. Can't keep up cranking out that insulin. And that's when the blood sugar really starts to climb. What's driving this? Okay, let me go into what is driving all of this from happening. Frequent eating, especially high carbohydrate, processed food. If you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, your insulin never gets an opportunity to come down. Remember, insulin actually lingers in the blood a lot longer than glucose. So even if your sugar dips after a snack, your insulin stays high. Processed foods make this worse. That's why we need to avoid processed foods. It's not just simply because it's so enticing and yummy to eat. I mean, that is, and you crave more and it becomes like a terrible endless cycle. But processed food makes this whole thing so much worse. Processed food is stripped down. There's no fiber, it's digested quickly, it causes huge spikes in the blood sugar, and that forces the pancreas to pump out even more insulin. So here's an analogy. Imagine your boss sends you an email once a week. You respond right away. And then your boss sends you an email every 10 minutes. And eventually you're gonna stop paying attention because it's getting to be a little too much there. So now your cells are full of insulin. This constant exposure makes them stop listening. They're done. Like, nope, we're done. It's too much. For me, this was the biggest trap. It was a nightmare of eating cookies, cake, wine, crackers, the simple things. I thought I was just relaxing at night at the end of the day, but really what I was doing was I was keeping my insulin levels elevated late into the night. Sound familiar? I know this happens to other people. I know I'm not alone in this. Drop a comment, if this is something that you do. You're that nighttime snacker and you for whatever the reasons are, but it becomes a pattern, it becomes a habit. And then no matter what you've done up to that point during the day with nutrition, etc., it becomes impossible to lose weight. And it wasn't really until I got on the GLP-1, which helped me and I had to work at this though. I still had to work on it, but it definitely was a tool that helped me to make it easier. But I had to literally, I had to cut out sugar. Not everyone does. It depends on what your triggers are. But I was able to cut out added sugar and alcohol completely in 2022. And then my insulin really had an opportunity at that point. It had the room to drop down. That's when I really started to move the needle on the scale. That's when my weight started to really come down, and the visceral fat also started to come down. So I want to talk about what are the symptoms, what are the silent warning signs, how do you know if you're insulin resistant? So here's the scary part. Most people, they don't know if they're insulin resistant. Most people, maybe they feel fine. They don't feel anything. And they don't know that these symptoms that I'm going to outline are actually symptoms of insulin resistance. So here we go. Okay, so some of the signs are increased thirst, frequent urination, constant hunger, even after you have a meal. You're just constantly hungry. That was definitely myself. Fatigue, that midday sleepiness. You could have dark, like velvety type patches on the neck, the armpit, or the groin. But in terms of like, how do you test for this? You can get lab work done, but here's the thing. You can go, the first real signs of this are when you have a high fasting glucose, high insulin levels. The problem is that most doctors, they don't test for insulin. They don't test for this. They will test you for your hemoglobin A1C, and that could be normal. And they're like, wow, you're normal. You're not even pre-diabetic. You're not diabetic. You're not pre-diabetic. But you could have really high insulin levels. If they don't test for it, you won't know it. Another way to know is if you have elevated triglycerides, and if you have these symptoms, you can ask for the insulin resistance or the insulin test. Now, if you've started to lose weight and you're on a GLP-1 at this point in time, it might have come down, but there are numbers. I have seen people, I'm trying to remember what the numbers are, but I think you should be below like a 3. I think that's the kind of telltale sign. Below a 3 for the insulin is healthy, and above it, you're starting to get unhealthy. I have seen people who had levels of 30. That is so high, but yet their hemoglobin A1C, normal. So the doctors really aren't looking at the right things. So it's really about putting together these symptoms along with the test, or even if you don't do the test, you have these symptoms, more than likely you have insulin resistance. And where that can lead to It is the root of probably almost everything that's wrong in our society from a disease perspective, because it creates inflammation. And what does inflammation do? Well, all of this can lead to type 2 diabetes, PCOS, fatty liver disease, metabolic syndrome, and that metabolic syndrome is a cluster of things. So it's composed of high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess belly fat, and high abnormal levels of cholesterol. Now, high levels of cholesterol don't necessarily mean unhealth, but it is the triglycerides or the small LDL that you really have to watch out for when it comes to the bad cholesterol. And it can also lead, this high insulin, to heart disease and stroke. So for me, my cholesterol levels were definitely higher. I did have that belly fat. My waist had gotten bigger. And I usually, when I was a teenager or, young kid, I had a really small waist. So for me, and my before pictures, I know some people look at my before pictures and they go, oh, well, you look pretty good, or, you're muscular or whatever. But my waist was not healthy. I definitely had visceral fat there, that stubborn fat. And I didn't connect the dots, not at first. Looking back, yeah, I see the red flags and I see that my body was just screaming, hey, I'm insulin resistant. This realization was one of the reasons why I decided to change my lifestyle completely, get on a GLP-1, because I really wanted to get healthy, not just for looking better and feeling better today, which is absolutely one of the reasons, but I was also looking down the road. So has your doctor ever mentioned to you anything about prediabetes, high fasting glucose, or insulin resistance to you? Let me know in the comments, because I really want to see how common this is. Okay, next I want to talk about the role of visceral fat in inflammation. So visceral fat is the fat that is around your organs. It's inside. You can't pinch it, right? It's the fat you can't pinch. That's like on your arm or your thigh. Visceral fat sits deep inside, and it's around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, even your heart. And the problem is with visceral fat, it's storage, and it releases inflammation. So it releases these chemicals that are more resistant to insulin, and your body then, it's in a vicious cycle, becomes even more resistant to the insulin. So it becomes a vicious cycle, more fat, more inflammation, more insulin resistance, more fat storage, and on, and it keeps going and going and going. That's why the belly fat is such a red flag. So it's not just cosmetic, it is a warning sign. It is a big, blaring warning sign of metabolic dysfunction. So if you have it, or you see anyone, family member or friend, somebody walking down the street and they have a big belly, more than likely they are insulin resistant. They have metabolic dysfunction. One of the things that I did in my DEXA scan that I had was, a DEXA scan shows you how much visceral fat you have. And since I got my DEXA scans, and I do have a video on that, you can go back and take a look, with results from 2 of my DEXA scans, I was really interested not just in my body fat percentage and what my lean mass was, but also the visceral fat. What did that say? Because that is such an indication of health today, and of where you're going to be long term, and how healthy and how easy it's going to be to maintain your weight. And that number was really small. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like maybe less than half a pound. I mean, ideally I'd like to see 0. So that to me is where I'm going to work towards. I want 0 on my visceral fat. So it's not just a matter of getting smaller and wearing smaller clothes, but I very cognizant that I want to be healthy. I want to lower my risk of ever getting any of these diseases like diabetes, fatty liver, heart disease, cardiovascular disease. I want to be able to minimize that. I never want to have that. And I think it's possible to never have any of those things by taking all of the right steps to make sure that my insulin levels are healthy. And you can also. Insulin resistance, it doesn't happen overnight. It is built over years. I'm talking 10, 15 years, even 20 years. But the good news is lifestyle changes can absolutely reverse it. It has been shown in studies and research, in other people, anecdotal reports. So here are the main drivers: excess body fat, especially belly fats. If you live a lifestyle where you are inactive, you're not really moving much. So your muscles aren't being used. The thing is with muscles, when you move your muscles, you stimulate them, you signal them to grow, they soak up glucose. And when you don't move at all, they're just not doing anything. They don't soak it up. But they can be one of the most beneficial areas of being able to reverse that, is to use your muscles to soak up that blood sugar efficiently. Another area is a diet that is high in refined processed food and sugar. Eliminate that. I know people say, oh, eat in moderation. It's okay to have it every blue moon or once in a while. But look, if you are insulin resistant, if you are trying to lose weight, if you have belly fat, my opinion, no, get that stuff out the door, because that's not helping you. You want to be able to reverse your insulin resistance, which means get that processed food and added sugar and alcohol no more. Another area that's going to create insulin resistance is poor sleep. Did you know that just one night of really bad sleep can increase your insulin resistance by as much as 25 to 30%? It's crazy. Now string that together and it becomes much harder now to lose weight and to get healthy, and that inflammation goes. So really important to make sleep a priority, good quality sleep. And then another area is stress, chronic stress. Chronic stress blocks the hormones, it blocks insulin's action, it elevates cortisol in a chronic way. So this is my list of what I do to make sure that I keep my insulin in check and that I try to keep it as healthy as possible. I prioritize protein at every meal. I walk daily with a weighted vest. I try and walk or do some sort of activity after meals, because that, even 5 or 10 minutes of activity after you eat something, will lower that spike of insulin much faster. I've cut out alcohol and added sugar back in 2022. And you know what? At this point, I'm never gonna go back to that, because I know how toxic alcohol is. Will I have a dessert or something at some point in the future? Maybe, but for today I choose no. And I'm almost at 3 years of not having any of this stuff, and I feel the best I've ever felt. So why would I want to go back to feeling like crap? And that's not just physically, but just, mentally. It causes brain fog and all of that because it causes inflammation. Again, this is not about perfection. I had to make it a choice every single day. I had to focus on what are the things that I can do to lower my insulin load, because I also know that that's going to lead to better weight loss and better outcomes, and it's going to make the journey a lot easier. And it's also going to help lower those cravings, appetite. So it really kind of pulls everything together in a big picture sense. And that is also how I have been able to maintain my weight for 2.5 years, maintain this weight loss. It hasn't been terribly difficult to maintain it. It takes intention, but it makes it a lot easier. So what out of all of this, what do you think is the hardest for you? Is it the nutrition? Is it the food part? Is it the exercise, the movement? Is it sleep? Is it stress? So drop a comment, let me know, what do you think? What are you struggling with the most? So I want to talk about something that can really help to lower insulin, and that is fasting, or intermittent fasting, or time restricted eating. So let's talk about this. Fasting is not starving yourself. It is giving your body a break from that constant insulin stimulation. And here's how it helps. It reduces that constant insulin exposure. It improves the insulin receptor sensitivity. It lowers your fasting glucose and insulin, and it reduces visceral fat. It boosts something called adiponectin. That is a hormone that improves insulin sensitivity. So when I first started trying out intermittent fasting, it was actually my doctor that brought it up to me. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I thought I would be miserable, I would be hungry, I would be starving. But what actually happened was I actually felt more energized and clear-headed. My cravings started to go away. I also learned something about myself. I was a little bit hungry, but I was like, I can live with this hunger. And then the hunger kind of like peaks and then it goes back down again pretty quickly, and it doesn't stay there. So I know that the insulin is doing its job again. And the intermittent fasting does not have to be extreme. I would recommend starting with 12 and 12. So give your body 12 hours of a break overnight and start with that. And then you can start moving yourself to, an 8, 24, moving the needle into a little bit more intermittent fasting. And the more body fat you have, the more, especially belly fat you have, the more intermittent fasting that you can do. And you can play around with how, the timing and the fasting and how you're feeling, but it really gives your body an opportunity to reset. It gives your body an opportunity to really lower those insulin levels. So have you ever tried intermittent fasting? If so, what was your experience? Share in the comments. Would love to hear about your stories and share with everybody else. So let's also talk about what foods we should be eating, how to prioritize them in terms of being able to lower that insulin levels. Okay, this is a list of food that I personally either limit severely or avoid altogether. And that is refined carbs, such as white bread, pasta, white rice, and pastries. Now, I limited that during the weight loss stage. Occasionally, I would have rice. Occasionally, I'd have pasta, but very rarely. I do have that more now because I'm more metabolically healthy now and I can stay at this weight. But during that weight loss phase, when I really wanted to get my insulin healthy, I slowly got rid of that. I had been eating, I'm a bread person, I'm a carbie. I love breads. I love bread and pasta and rice and anything carbohydrate, I love it. So for me to try and eliminate that was really, really hard. And I never said I can't have. I never went with the mindset of I can or I can't. It was never black and white. It was I'm choosing not to have these things for my health. It was for my overall health. Not because I was a bad person or because I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to get healthy. I wanted to lower my insulin levels. I knew that was the culprit of all of this. I knew I was very carb sensitive, and I knew this would help me to get healthier. So I made it an intentional choice over time to slowly wean those things out. One of the biggest culprits is white bread. That is something that is there's nothing nutritional in it, and it really spikes your insulin. So these are the other items that you need to really avoid or limit, and that is anything that's added sugar, soda, candy, sweetened drinks. Do not drinking soda. That is sure way to spike that insulin. Anything processed wise, I really have avoided that. I mean, I used to be, trying to think of those crackers I used to love. Oh my God, there's so many crackers that I used to love. But I always remember eating, you know, Triscuits or I don't know, whatever the cracker of the day was, pretzels and all that stuff. It would never satiate me. I would always eat it and I would just be like, I'm still hungry or I'm hungrier. And now like I'm making the links. Now I'm like connecting the dots as to why I was still hungry. Why was it led me to being hungrier? So I really like eliminated all of that. All the processed foods, boxed snacks, packaged meals, unhealthy fats. I really, really limit those. So that's fried foods, hydrogenated oils, trans, and all the, I hope everybody knows now the trans oils are no-no. That's a really, really bad thing that leads to really bad inflammation. So again, we want to reduce the insulin. We want it to be at normal, healthy levels so that we don't get that inflammation, because the inflammation leads to this whole big, crazy metabolic mess. And alcohol. I know, some people really love their alcohol or going out and all that stuff, but heavy drinking, it worsens insulin resistance. It just does. And especially for PCOS, which I had, the hormonal imbalances, whether you are young or you're in perimenopause or menopause, drinking is going to worsen your symptoms. Period, end of discussion. It just is. So what can we eat instead? What can we enjoy and eat? And how can we do this in a way that is going to feed us, nourish us? Better insulin levels are going to be the result. And that is whole foods. Try and cook yourself, cook your own foods. I did a what I eat in a day video that goes through everything that I eat. I eat, you know, everything I cook. I will make more videos, especially if you guys ask for them. If there's a want out there, I will absolutely let me know. I'll make more of what I eat in a day, because I do vary my, you know, what I eat up somewhat, but I'm a very, you know, I do eat on repeat a lot of meals. I enjoy that. Fiber-rich carbohydrates, those are really important. So vegetables, I eat a ton of vegetables. You want the fiber. Fiber is so good for you on so many levels. It helps to keep you regular, but drink your water as well with it. Gotta drink enough water. So fiber helps to regulate you. It helps with satiety, so it keeps you full a lot longer. And your microbiome, the microbiome that's in your gut, that's what eats the fiber. Like, and you want to keep those little guys happy, because that keeps the inflammation down. So there's so many benefits. Vegetables, oats, quinoa, there's beans, there's other things that are fiber rich. I stuck mostly to vegetables to get my fiber, and I get a really good amount of fiber because I do eat a lot of vegetables. There are some fruits that have fiber as well, like blueberries and whatnot, but I'm gonna caution you, don't overdo it on the fruit. People think fruit's so healthy, and seasonal fruit in small amounts, healthy. Too much fruit, that is not good. You're just spiking your sugars again. And so fruit should be eaten in season and in smaller amounts. And especially if you're losing weight, if you're still in that weight loss phase, you want to kind of keep that limited, because again, too much fruit, that's going to block the weight loss because of the insulin levels, because of the inflammation. You want to eat lean proteins, chicken, fish, salmon, eggs, Greek yogurt, lean beef, turkey, tuna. You know, those are all the things that I eat. Now, I do like chicken thighs, not super lean, but not really that fatty, and they taste so much better. And I think that's okay. The game changer for me was finally swapping out my dessert at night. I was able to eliminate my nightly dessert. And if I'm really hungry, or I'm having a craving, which I hardly ever have anymore, for something sweet, I'll have a protein bar. So over time, my cravings for sugar really just completely disappeared. And I genuinely crave good, healthy foods. Oh, cottage cheese, that's another one. That's my favorite. Eggs, cottage cheese, vegetables, like these good proteins. I genuinely actually crave those foods. So over time, as you start eating better and healthier and getting rid of the crappy, junky food, your taste buds will change, and you will turn a corner and you will start to crave the healthier things. So getting back to why you even should care about this, why everyone, from your doctors to your neighbors to your friends, why everyone should care about insulin resistance. Okay, the bottom line is it is at the root of so many health problems. It's not just about diabetes, it is about your energy, your mood, your hormones, your ability to lose weight, and even how quickly you age, because insulin at higher levels creates inflammation, and that shows up on your skin as well. It ages your skin. So if you want to start getting healthier skin and looking a little younger, there's another reason to want to pay attention to your insulin levels. You can still be thin and have insulin resistance. Yes, you can still be young and have insulin resistance. This is something that every person needs to care about. The earlier you make the change, the easier it's going to be to reverse it. GLP-1s really help that so much to help reverse this insulin resistance. That's why when you get on a GLP-1 and you haven't really made any, changes, or maybe you were eating really well to begin with, and the weight wasn't moving, the scale wasn't going, and you jump onto the GLP-1 and you're like, holy crap, I just lost 3 pounds or 4 pounds this week in your first week or two. And I didn't really change anything because I was eating pretty good before that. How does that happen? That happened to me. I had changed my diet. I was eating really well. I jumped on the GLP-1. I didn't change anything. I kept eating what I was eating. And it wasn't just reduced appetite. I literally lost over 4 pounds that first week. And I'm like, what the heck? It's because of insulin. It's hormones. It so affects all of us. And the earlier, again, that you make these changes, the easier it's going to be to do it. But it's never too late. So I don't care how old you are, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond, you can make this change right now. You have the power to do it. And now you have the knowledge to create better health, a longer life, a better quality of health, less risk of disease, and more energy. So for me, really learning about insulin was just life-changing. It really was the missing link. And once I understood it, I was able to lose 50 pounds, keep it off this entire time, get really lean, and I was able to help build my muscle and my strength. So I want to ask you, what's the one step that you're going to take this week to improve your insulin? In this video, I hope that it has opened up your eyes to how critical insulin levels really are. So are you going to cut your soda out, your processed foods? Are you going to cook more for yourself? Are you going to take that daily walk? Are you going to lift that weight and get your muscles engaged, because they are a sink for that glucose? That's a really awesome thing to do. Are you gonna get to bed earlier? Are you gonna try to work on your stress levels a little bit? So drop it in the comments. Let us all know what you're gonna work on this week. What's the one thing? It doesn't have to be everything. Just pick one thing. And I hope that if this video hit you, it resonated with you, you liked it, maybe share it with somebody that's interested, who's interested to know about insulin, GLPs, weight loss, fitness. I have a whole library full of that stuff in my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Stay strong.